Mark, that's exactly the phrase that I wrote down. She is setting out her stall, and more importantly, she's trying to energize the team that is behind this campaign, because this is the team that was behind the Biden-Harris campaign. Now, obviously, the Biden has been dropped from the name of that campaign, and we're told it's been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions of a day there in Wilmington. Of course, people were very disheartened and sad that Joe Biden, somebody that they clearly love very much, has dropped out of the race, but I think their spirits will have been lifted in the fact that the president spoke to them at the beginning of this address. He said, "I know yesterday's news was a hard thing to do, but it was the right thing to do." He said, "The name has changed at the top of the ticket, but the mission hasn't changed at all. And by the way, I'm not going anywhere. I won't be on the ticket, but I'm still going to be fully engaged." He then added, "I'll be doing whatever Kamala wants me and needs me to do in addition to his presidential duties." And then he ended with a rallying cry to the faithful that were gathered there at his former election campaign headquarters, saying, "We're still fighting this fight together. I'm not going anywhere. I want you to know always, you've always had my back. I promise you I will always have your back as well." There was also a nice moment, I thought, between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Kamala obviously touting the president's achievements whilst they've been in office together, also speaking to his character, mentioning his now deceased sons as well. There was a moment where he was talking she was talking to Joe Biden, saying, "We are deeply grateful for your service to the American nation." And Biden, who was listening in, then seemed to say, "You're the best kid." So a bit of a real handing of the torch there between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But then Kamala Harris did take it upon herself to set out her stall for the future, what she thinks she's going to be shaping her policy around over the course of the next 4 years if she does indeed get the nomination and then go on to win the election. She took a swipe at Donald Trump, and I think that really was the most telling part of her platform. She touted her record as a prosecutor, of course, in California, and she said that she has spent her entire life taking on all kinds of perpetrators. She then listed predators, fraudsters, and cheaters. And then she said, "So hear me when I say I know Donald Trump's type." That then a very obvious swipe at Donald Trump and something that the Trump campaign has been worried about, the fact that Kamala Harris does have this background as a prosecutor, and she will be now prosecuting the case against Donald Trump, in the words of the campaign. So a real big moment for Kamala Harris, and as we head into the Democratic Convention now, just a few weeks away.
Indeed, I know Donald Trump's type. She said, "I will proudly put my record against his." She talked about sex abusers that she prosecuted. She pointed out he falls into that category. A bogus college that she got people refunded on. She pointed out Trump University again fitted into that category, and he had to pay out $25 million to students. Polluters. She pointed out that Donald Trump talked about $1 million donation from big oil. Also, the foreclosure scandal. Fraudsters involved in that. She pointed out that Donald Trump also, of course, convicted of 34 counts of fraud. Two different visions of the future. One with peace, one going forward, the other one going backwards, which you said would be under Trump and Vance Fraser. Stay with us for a second. Let's take a listen to Joe Biden, whom was highly praised by Kamala Harris in that speech.
And so I want to say hello to Kamala, if she can hear me. I know she's going to be speaking shortly. And I want to say to the team, embrace her. She's the best. I want to call today to thank everybody in this effort. I know yesterday's news was surprising, and it was hard for you to hear, but it was the right thing to do. And I know I'll be doing whatever Kamala wants me or needs me to do in addition. So let me be real clear. We're still fighting in this fight together. I'm not going anywhere. And I want you to know you've always had my back, and I promise you, I will always have your back. And I'm anxious for you all to hear from Kamala. So thank you, Julie. You're the best.
One of the team stood at the mic. We heard the voice of Joe Biden there saying that he will do whatever Kamala Harris needs him to do in order to advance her campaign, of course, when she gets the nomination. Fraser, one of the issues is uniting the party and going forward. Is it thought she is the kind of candidate who can unite the Democratic Party?
It doesn't really look like there's going to be anybody else coming out against her. We have already seen a real circling of the wagons around Kamala Harris. Technically, other people could put their name forward. They would need 300 signatures to do so. But I think a lot of the candidates who we thought might have put their names forward have held off a little while to see how much support Kamala Harris would indeed have. And it seems that it's resounding. One of the latest polls that we saw that came out from just a couple of hours ago said that over 80% of people approve of Joe Biden's decision to step down, and the vast majority were also very happy to see Kamala Harris as the nominee. So I think it's working with the people, and you can just look at the amount of money that's been raised to back that up. Well over $80 million now raised in the 24 hours since Joe Biden stepped back from the nomination. That is the largest amount of money in presidential history by any candidate on either side of the aisle, according to Kamala Harris's campaign. So a real boost there to the coffers of Harris's campaign. But also politically, we're seeing a lot of support as well. A lot of members of the House, of the Senate also coming out. Nancy Pelosi, who was one of the people whose influence really, I think, sparked Joe Biden's decision to step back. She has now come out and supported Kamala Harris. Interestingly, so far, we still haven't heard a real endorsement from Hakeem Jeffries in the House and Chuck Schumer in the Senate. I think they're waiting off to have an actual conversation with Kamala Harris one-on-one before they fully give their endorsement. And we also haven't heard from Barack Obama yet either. A friend who works at a network here called News Nation in America has told me that they've spoken to Obama and that he is waiting to give his endorsement until the actual nominee is confirmed. So that will be a couple of weeks before Obama officially confirms things, if that is indeed correct. So aside from that, though, a lot of the Democratic parties, a lot of the bigwigs in it, circling the wagons around Kamala Harris and uniting the party, which I think, when you cast your mind back just a few days ago, is a completely different state of affairs to where we were even a week ago.
Indeed. You mentioned the Obamas, you mentioned Jeffries, you mentioned Schumer. How about George Clooney? Do we know what he thinks?
Well, he is one of the mega donors that I'm sure Kamala Harris will be trying to get back on board. And, you know, he's certainly provided quite a bit of a boost to the campaign. So I'm sure she'll be hoping that he is indeed on board with the ticket as well.
Fraser, pleasure speaking to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Fraser Jackson, our correspondent in Washington. We're bringing you a reaction